1925 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My father went through a depression, but he wasn't caught in it. There's a story about him going to the bank to make a deposit. And the teller said, "Don't do that. Don't put it in the bank. Don't put it in." So he didn't do it and withdrew whatever he could out of the bank at the time. And then the depression came. And we were in pretty good shape. Well, I was notified that I was going to be drafted, but I enlisted into the Air Corps.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to go into any other service. And I went into the Air Corps. Well, naturally, we were all concerned, but there was nothing we could do. I'd say the majority of my high school class went into the service. So there's nothing we can do at the time because we're at war. My parents got out of Russia to get out of the Tsar's army, and they migrated to the States here. But I couldn't go to Russia to migrate out of mine. I was stuck in there, like all the rest of us were. I was fortunate that, I went through the whole service without getting hurt, so I didn't have no problem there. In fact, seeing places I never would have seen normally. I went in for pilot training, and I had about 18 lessons flying in a little Piper Cub. And I was going to go to what they call advanced training when we got notice that they had too many pilots. And I had a choice: gunnery school, infantry. So you know where I landed. I went to gunnery school. And that's how I ended up where I was, at the tail gunner. I didn't want to be on the ground. I'd rather be in the air. The difference between, I didn't know anything about a B-29 at the time. So we were treated to the B-17s. We used to fire from the waist with the machine, 20 millimeter cannon on the side. But it was all exposed. They would fly a small plane with a sleeve in the back, dragging a sleeve, and we would fire at it. And that's the training we got. Plus on the ground, I must have fired, 5 different guns, starting with shotguns, handguns, everything, just to keep us in the training period of how to shoot, how to aim. But I'll tell you, we got into a B-29, you didn't need it because it was all computerized in the plane. All you had to do is sight it in the middle, pull the triggers, and that was it. Whereas you didn't have to use a gun to follow the plane, Basically, my primary job was to start what they call the putt-putt. It's a small generator in the plane. That's what started the big B-29s, this generator. So my position was to know what to do with that and how to start it. But basically my job was sitting in the back. I didn't have to sit there long because we were pressurized. Being pressurized, we didn't have to wear the masks and all that at the time. And I would be able to get through a tube from the front of the plane to the back end into the tail gunning section, close it off, and it would be enclosed, and I'd still be pressurized. That was my position in the back. I could see from either side and back. My basic problem was you went by the clock system. If a plane would attack you from the nose, it would be 12 o'clock. So I would be at 6 o'clock. 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock were opposite. So they would say, it's coming to you at 9 o'clock, and I would go this way, but the plane was coming this way. So by the time I got my guns on that plane, it was a dot in the sky. I couldn't see it anymore. Right by us. No, I couldn't make out features. I knew there was somebody in there, but that's the way it was. Couldn't see their face. we were shot at about maybe a half a dozen times, and then it all stopped because we had more firepower on the B-29 than a normal plane would have, and we had the speed. So they would attack us through the nose rather than from the tail, because they couldn't catch up to us. And if they did, we had the firepower to shoot at them. So that's when, at the end of the war, they would make a fast turn, and that was it. They were our enemy, and we were taught that. You couldn't say you could spare the guy because he's shooting at you, you're going to shoot back. And basically that's what we did. But you don't want to shoot at him, what good are you up there? There's no protection or anything. My basic thing, telling people how I felt, I said, I've been places I've never been before in my life. As long as you got out of it in good shape, it was a good experience. Seeing all these small islands and the way they fixed it up for us and for the United States, actually, till we got to Japan. Even Iwo Jima, which was a big fight there to get the island, and lost a lot of people. We had an 11-man crew. We lived in a Quonset hut, which wasn't bad living either. And we managed to get through it all and used the base for, I had about 30 some odd missions out of Saipan. We were told not to tell them where we were located. But I had told my wife before I left, it was my wife, my girlfriend, keep an eye on the paragraphs. And each time I start a new paragraph in my writing, it will tell you from the first letter where we were stationed. And it worked out. She knew I was on Saipan. I was on Saipan, for a year and a half, but I was in the Army for close to 2.5 to 3 years because of all the training. But by the time I got to Saipan, it was like maybe a year when the war was over. Last mission was dropping supplies to the prisoners of war on the island, on Japanese. Going home was waiting for that final mission because they were sending crews home after 35 missions. And I was on my 15th or 20th at the time, and we were waiting for more missions actually to get to 35 if we could. Never reached it, but the war was over at the time we went home. This is Big Me. These were our officers. Now each one, this was the captain, he was the co-pilot, he was the bombardier, radio man, navigator. This was the older guy I was talking about when we built the boat. He was a flight engineer, radio man. He was a side gunner and also a side gunner, tail gunner, and he was the middle gunner, the guy that's up at the top of the plane, the bubble. And that was my 11-man crew. And this we received for one of our missions to Tokyo. That's the Flying Cross. Now that's a funny story too. Didn't know what it was to begin with until after we received it. They were giving us good conduct medals, the basic stuff. And then when we were called one time to dress up and come out to the field, in marching, and our CO from the field came up there and made the announcement, then we knew it was something better, so that's what I had. I used to go to the area shows. They used to have a show at the airport, and there were booths, different booths showing different things. And one of them was Flying Cross. And I said, I have one of those, wonder what they are. And I walked over there. They told me, you got a Flying Cross? I said, yeah. He said, you got that for bravery. I said, when was that? But they explained it. I read the citation over again, and sure enough, it was for a night vision that we went to bomb Tokyo. It reads, "The Distinguished Flying Cross, by direction of the President, under the provisions of the Act of Congress, approved the 2nd July 1926, announced is payment of the award of the Distinguished Flying Cross for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight 26 May 1945 on a low-level night incendiary attack from a base in the Marianas against the city of Tokyo, Japan. These individuals, as members of the B-29 combat crew, flew the most heavily defended areas of Japan at extremely low altitude to accomplish a successful bombing of their objective. Each crew member exhibited a superior airmanship in accomplishing his mission." They had lost a lot of planes at the time because it was low altitude flying. Instead of flying 30,000 feet, this was flying 10,000 feet and dropping the bombs. We were getting shot at from the ground, and with the searchlights and all that. And here's a story with that. There's so many stories on this thing. We were going that mission, one of the missions, and our radio man was informed that he would have to stay in the middle of the plane at a patchwork that was opened up and throw down aluminum foil, wrapped in a foil, and throw it down there to deter the area, the area gunners down there, not to shoot at the planes, but they would see these things floating down and would shoot at it for one reason or another. I don't know. But he kept throwing that down. Well, we flew over a section of the bombed area which was already bombed and had burned a lot of buildings. And the thermo that came up, we went through that, raised our plane almost 3,000 feet from that. And also us inside it. We were floating up on top of it. When we finally got out of it, it looked like Christmas because all the foil was hanging inside the plane because it had gotten out of the hand of it. And that was another experience we had. And we were fortunate enough to go through it and had no problem, but we were offered the Flying Cross. That's why I still carry on with the Distinguished Flying Cross. I'm the only one in South Orange that is a member. But there are members all over the country. Each year, you get more people getting Flying Cross medals than when we were getting them. So I keep interested in it. I write to them. I'm a member of the committee, of the cross, and they keep sending me information. I don't do much about it, but I'm interested. Fortunately, I was able to get on an airplane flying back. Our plane was broken up. All the guys were given different positions to get onto a plane that was leaving. Because they couldn't just fly our plane back. It was already, the planes were already set up to go back. And I got on a plane with a bunch of old fellas. What they did was use the bomb bays for luggage. Put all the luggage in there to go back. We flew to back up the route that we came. We landed in Honolulu, and for an overnight, we flew from Honolulu to Mather Field, I think it was, in California. The funny part of it next was we wore suntans. You know what suntans are? That's the basic light brown outfits, right? Then you had the winter outfits, which were the heavier kind of thing. And when we landed in California, when we were supposed to go to the East Coast, it was wintertime. And I didn't have anything but the one pair of light brown stuff. They issued us the ODs, which were the darker outfits. But apparently, I got an outfit that was used by somebody else. It had holes in the back of the shirt, so I thought, this guy was shot at. I don't know. And I landed. And I had to roll up my pants because they were too long. And I didn't give a darn so long as I got home. And this is how my girlfriend or wife greeted me at the airport. No, I was up at the train station. And that's how I got out. I felt I was finally home, finally. No more letters, dear. I can't write any more letters. But a little bit, like I said, I was in good shape, physically. So I didn't have anything there to worry about. It was, like I say, a different feeling altogether. You were enlightened. It was a feeling of being freed. So you weren't under officers, you were your own boss now. That's the way it worked. And it came around pretty good. We were pretty good. In fact, we became engaged almost immediately. Because we corresponded for a long time. I knew her before I went into the service. This is I didn't go to her prom because I was in the service. It was my prom that she went to. When I graduated, it was 43, yeah. My wife did needle point. She always did. And I got interested. And I did little pieces. And I did a lot of, pillows and stuff like that. But when we went into this thing, we went to this teacher for me to learn how to do it. And I already had a little experience. And she made what they call the scrim, which is the background. And she would make an outline of the picture we wanted to do. And it was kind of big for me, to learn on that. And then my wife said, well, let's you and I do it. So it took us 6 months because we would come home from work. We were already tired as it is. And we would do maybe an hour or two on it. But you can't do the picture like this in an hour or two. It takes a long time. And people would remark, we don't know where you worked, we don't know where your wife worked. And it is strange because each person has a different feel for it. But it did work out. And we decided we'll frame it because it did work out. But I did do a lot of pictures. There is a reason for it. I don't know. We just liked it. Let's put it that way.